Hi, I'm Lisa Laronde, the first woman president at RSJ International and the host of this new podcast called the Powerhouse Project. Today, I'm excited to welcome Melissa Alexander, a floor covering apprentice who is a peer worker, a mentor, and an activist. Thank you so much for joining us today, Melissa.
You're welcome, Lisa. It's been a while.
It has. I actually was just thinking about the first time we met, which was at Honor Thy Work, when we were talking to primary school teachers. And I remember saying, I got to make sure I control my swearing. And everyone's like, oh, no, don't worry. But I was probably more intimidated by talking to primary school teachers than I have been about talking with other CEOs. But I have to say, Melissa, I was actually very, very inspired by your story. You've impressed me, and now we've connected on LinkedIn, and I love following your journey. So I'd like to start with what actually inspired you to get involved in the skilled trades?
So my father is a mechanic, and for some reason he knew that skilled trades was going to be needed in the future. And so he always told me to, get into the trades. And I was just like, but I like doing that as a hobby. I never thought of taking it as a career. Before me being a floor layer, I almost got into culinary, actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And then I realized, I like cooking, but I don't want to, being a chef as a career. So basically it's just my dad, and I just like doing things with my hands.
And so now you're fourth year apprentice, correct?
Going into my fifth year by August.
What's been your experience or some of your challenges?
Experience as a floor layer is actually pretty cool. One thing I didn't thought it was part of floor laying was doing game lines. And so my first ever game lining was back in 2020, I think it's 2020 or 21 at University of Ottawa. We did their whole floors, from stripping to putting new seal to adding the game lines. So I didn't know how it looked like before, but it looks good.
You got to make sure you do that right.
Exactly. But to be fair, because I was a first year back then, I didn't do much. The only thing they allowed me to do was the detail painting, because I love painting. So they allowed me to do the stencils, the little stencils. Cool. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
That's really neat. I wouldn't have guessed that that was part of the job.
Not me either. I was just like, oh. So I took pictures and I actually put it up in my Instagram. And one of my friends, she knew me as a ball player in high school. She's like, who would have thought you'd be doing these game lines, and you as a ball player? That's pretty cool. And I was like, right?
Yeah, it comes around full circle.
Exactly.
So how did you become involved as a certified peer worker, or what motivated you to get involved?
Building up was my foundation. So I was a trainee 6 years ago, and I had a case manager at the time. She knew that I was an activist. She knew that I wanted to help the community, and she saw an opportunity for me to join this organization called Community Healing Project, which is under the city of Toronto. And because it's a youth base, she was like, well, you could always try. And I'm like, well, I'm over youth, so I don't know if I could make it. Sure enough, I did the interview and they took me. And from then I did the 6 months training plus three months of doing workshops at my neighborhood that I grew up. And then ever since, I've been with them ever since.
And so where did you grow up?
I grew up in St. Jamestown, which is by Sherbourne and Wellesley, downtown. Yeah.
As a peer worker, do you just motivate or work with youth?
I motivate, do workshops, or any underprivileged neighborhoods that's going through a crisis, like say somebody got shot or a suicide happened. They will call the community peers, and then they will ask anybody who's available to support that neighborhood. And so sometimes I will take it, sometimes I can't because of work.
Yep.
So I'm like a bit of like a workshop, like doing facilitation, but also a support system around the areas that needed peer support workers.
I think that's awesome. Can you tell us a little bit about Stella's Place?
I think Stella Place was the main organization that created the training, and they paired up with George Brown College. So our training was at George Brown College almost every Saturday until we finished at 6 months, and then we get to go for a placement.
And how did you actually get involved in that? Is it because it's the neighborhood that you grew up in, or how did you find these kinds of places that you wanted to volunteer with?
It's really an opportunity. So if it like people knew what I want to do, so they're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, Melissa, how about this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll try." And then sure enough, when I find out what they do, it's more like, you know what? I don't mind volunteering. I don't mind helping out some way, somehow, especially for the youth.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I do think that that's our future now, and I think it's just so important that we tell our stories and we engage the youth, and we particularly we engage women to be able to get into the trades, because I think it's really
Exactly.
important that we represent. So you have done some advocacy work supporting the Walls to Bridges. Can you just tell us a little bit about the organization?
So Walter Bridges is actually a program that's offered inside the prisons for anybody that wants to get into social justice. Anybody from inside that wants to apply, they have to write like a letter stating why they feel they want to get into the program. Once you get chosen, the main teacher who is already been trained to teach inside, they pick the 11 women inside and then 11 students from Sir Wilfrid Laurier. And then they come together. So instead of the women going to the university, the
Yeah.
students come to the jail.
Wow.
And it's basically to break the stigma.
Yeah.
Right? And then on top of that, what we're studying. So it could be social work, it could be sociology, it could be philosophy. I think it was a pilot back in 2011, I believe. I think it's 2011. They have this one big project as a group. And what they wanted is, okay, well, the program's ended. We don't want to stop. So we build a collective from inside. And it got bigger and bigger. And then some of the women who were inside were already released. And so the ones who got out created an outside collective.
Wow.
So right now it's like pretty much across Canada over 10 years.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
and I've been with them for almost 10 years. Yeah.
How did you actually get involved in that particular program, or how do other people get involved in a program like that?
So anybody that wants to get into the program, you have to find out if your university actually has that program. And so you apply. Whereas women from inside, when they do get the poster that says, "Oh, there's a new course," then you just write a letter. How I got involved is because I was in prison. I was there from 2011 to 2017. I was kind of worried and somewhat shy to join because I never thought I had enough academia to do university, and I had a lady that actually pushed me. So I applied 3 times, and when I finally got into the first, I end up doing 4 more after that. And then in between the 4 courses I've done, that's when I actually wanted to be part of the movement. I believe in second chances, and I also believe that education is the key that actually helps women, men inside build their confidence. And maybe when they get out, hey, they could actually go back to school.
We see eye to eye on that. I believe that education is the key for a lot of things, and we just need to educate people. We need to tell our stories and talk about it. So, you're not afraid of working, particularly with a woman or somebody who doesn't look like you, or maybe somebody that has been in prison. I agree. We all need second chances. And the only way we can do that is to continue to offer programs like you've been involved in. Is that how you started to get involved in the trades?
I studied horticulture. So I actually did landscaping for about a year and a half. When I came out and I found Building Up, Building Up is a nonprofit organization that helps people with barriers, right, to go into the trade. So my mindset was, oh, they could help me to get into landscape. But during that time, they were still new and they didn't have anything for landscaping. So I was like, okay, what's my second love? Carpentry. And so so I did some of their sites for about a year and a half. And then I finally got into Local 27. My first apprenticeship in there was actually general carpentry. But then when I found out that they have you have to do a pre-apprenticeship, I'm like, okay, well, I did my pre-apprenticeship with Building Up. I need something it's straightforward to my apprenticeship. And that's how I chose flooring.
It's great that you had that opportunity. So do you have any memorable stories that you can share when you're working either within the community or as a peer mentor?
Oh my gosh, that's so much. I would say TCBN. It's called TCBN, which is Toronto Community Benefits Network. They have a program, a mentorship program. And actually, one of my mentors was an outreach coordinator for Building Up, and he moved to TCBN. And while he was coordinating the mentorship program, he texted me, he's like, I want you to apply. And I'm like, but I'm not ready. But I didn't realize that I was so good at it. And it's just because I love seeing people strive. Like,
Yeah.
I love the fact that if somebody's coming from a dark place and they just want a chance, I use like my a little bit of my experience, but also, okay, what trade do you want to get into? And then I start researching. And so from there, it was like, okay, I think I could actually do this. And so my profound achievement, I would say, is I was on parole and Building Up got the opportunity to go inside the prison for their career fair. And as a parolee, you cannot go back in until you finish your time. And because I was with Building Up, I was able to go. I think I was the first. I was told I was the first ever as a parolee. And I kind of broke that stigma because, again, like somebody who went through the system, came back out and did all these wonderful things, got into the trades, trying to promote these organizations to anybody that's looking for either trades or social work or whatever. I kind of just give them the resources to check it out. And yeah, that was my biggest achievement, to be honest, is to go back in there and see the women I did time with and like literally tell them, hey, if trades is what you guys want to do, Building Up is here. Just go for it.
But also, you have to be a role model to say, look at, I'm on the outside and look at what I've accomplished. And the program actually is successful.
Exactly.
I think that's very cool. What advice do you have for women that are either entering the trades or that are struggling in their path in the trades?
Don't give up. I feel no, it's true because there is times, and I could recall this, like my first 2 years, I almost walked out just because of my situation. And it was hard to navigate. Okay, I have to go see my PO. Oh, I have to go here. I have to go here and I have to take time off. And I know bosses don't like that, especially if you're missing too much. So don't give up. Take a leap. If hands-on is what you want to do it. Don't be afraid. There's so many organizations that will help, and some of them are free.
I know we talked briefly just about, harassment and discrimination that happens, on the work site, and that if you're part of a union that's getting called out for jobs, if you do complain, then sometimes you get put to the bottom of the list, or, you get laid off, or people don't want to work with you. So what do you think that we can do to, change that, or at least give women guidance or advice on how to deal with situations like that?
Well, because my union has a mentorship program, each new apprentice is always placed with a mentor that's been in the trade for about 2 years. That's the route I will go, is having that mentor and just talk things out before, you rationally just jump and cause trouble. And then there's your reps, right? This is why I always say to like trainees that moves on to my union, I always say, you guys have to come to these meetings because your reps are there. Show your face, talk to them. They're not scary people. They're actually decent and they want the help. So your mentor, your reps, and then even higher ups like your equity, diversity, inclusion director, or your vice chair, or your president. Like if you feel that you want more guidance, you could go there too.
So we were talking a lot about, that there's only 5% of women in the skilled trades. And so one of the things that people look for is to have a sense of community or a sense of belonging. We don't have this group that women can actually get together to share their stories, or to have access to people like yourself to just get some advice in terms of, here, this is what I'm struggling with on my crew. What are some of your suggestions or recommendations? So do you have any ideas on how we would promote how women in the skilled trades can actually form part of a community, or how would they access some of those resources?
I'm going to speak of my union because we actually have a sisterhood committee. And so my advice is to, whatever trade you're in or whatever union you're in, if they have a women's committee, like a sisterhood committee, go to it. Because one, we could vent,
Yeah.
vent out like
Yeah.
whatever frustration we have on site or
Yep.
what's not happening. Um, that's one. And then two, it's actually an opportunity for us to have that open dialogue and actually present it to the higher ups, and also outings, because we do outings. So
What role do you think men can play in creating inclusive workplaces?
support, support,
Yeah.
support, support. I could say like I love the old school men because my dad's old school, so I know how to deal with their rants and their whatever. But if we could get more support where somebody isn't built for the trades, at least help them out. You know, you don't have to like look at their stature and be like, okay, well, she can't do this, so we're gonna make her sweep and
Yeah.
throw garbage.
Yeah.
Like challenge us, because you'd be surprised.
I think we're doing a pretty good job attracting women into the trades. We're not doing a very good job of retaining them. And I said a lot of that's about harassment and discrimination. And I just don't think we prepare women to be able, this is what you're going to be faced with when you get onto a crew or a work site. And then, as we talked about earlier, like, where do you go when you're faced with challenges or, harassment or discrimination, and how do you deal with all of that? And I'll go back again that I say, it's all about, we need education. We need to educate people. And I don't know if unions can help us do that. Maybe we mandate that unions have to have whatever, I'll just pull up percentages, 20% of their members have to be women or people of an underrepresented group. And then she goes, well, then what happens is you're ticking a box, or if you mandate it on job sites and they would have one, GC might have one woman and then they rotate her around. And I said, but at some point, even if you are the token woman, then we're just going to show them that we're good at what we're doing. We can do a good job. We can probably do a better job than other people. I'll take that opportunity every day to tick a box to be the token woman on site so that I can represent and show that we actually have a place at the table. What are your thoughts on that?
For me, it's more like, because I found out there's more women programs now for trades.
Yeah.
And so what I do is anytime I find out this organization has a women's all trade, I'll be like, oh, can I get your flyer? And then I start like telling everybody like, hey, are you interested? Here, check this out, check this out, check this out. There's one in George Brown. There is Skill for Change, the YWCA.
But how do women know to access these kinds of programs?
It's more like going to like job fairs or trade shows. That's where you could find a lot of the organizations, because that's how I find out a lot of these organizations. And some of them I'm actually doing like some panels or speaking engagement. How they do with their program, it's like, okay, where else can they do hands-on?
Yeah.
Before they move on to a union or non-union. So I kind of dish out the resources like that. But the best is trade shows or job fairs to find these organizations.
And we're trying to get into, even as you and I did the panel with the primary teachers, is to get people interested early on, at least the kids, interested. If we can actually show them, this is what you can do, this is who you can be. And I think change that stigma about skilled trade workers, that you can make a lot of money and you can have a really good career. You can even, run your own business at the end of the day if you choose to do that. So I agree with you. So what are your long-term career aspirations once you get your red seal?
I actually, because someone asked me that, they're like, so when you get your red seal, what do you want to do? So I want to be a foreman, at least for a couple of years until I can't do it no more. And maybe teach, still mentoring. But I actually want to be a foreman on site, just because my experience with foremans, they were 50-50. And I feel like, okay, well, when we're having new apprentices and some of them are going to be young, they need somebody who actually understands what they're going through and who's willing to teach. That's one of my long-term goals, is actually to be that journey person with 3-4 apprentices underneath my belt and teach them as much as I can and help them with whatever they're going through, because I have stories for days. So it's more likely, like, helping them with the trade, but also if they want someone to talk to or any resources I could get.
And I think it's so important that we have women that are in either supervisory or for people roles, because then you represent, and then this younger generation coming up can actually see, hey, I can actually accomplish this. And I think as we get more women into leadership roles in either like a lead hand or supervisor or foreperson, that's where I think our education starts, and that's where I think we can start to change some of the behaviors that we've tolerated for so long. Because really, construction has one of the highest suicide rates. So, and that's, crosses all genders. I think it's partially just how we've always said, you got to suck it up and go to work and get the job done. It's, nobody's taking the time to look after your
mental
own
health.
Personal. Yeah. Do you think we have more resources or?
Still needs to be more. Another story. So my first company I worked for, we all got close and they made me feel like a daughter to them. And some of them actually opened up to me. And it was scary to hear how many people, or some of the men, actually have addictions. You just never seen that because all they do is work, 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 work.
Yeah.
But when they tell you, it's like, so what's happening? Are you getting treatment? Are you getting supports? Now I know my union has a mental health organization, but I still feel there should be more.
Yeah, and I think we have to continue to talk about, and as you said earlier, we have to change the stigma that, we all struggle at some point in time, and there's no problem with just raising your hand saying, I'm struggling today and I need some help. Because I think the more that we share our stories, the more people understand that they're not alone in this journey. So how do you balance your roles between your commitments to work, your personal life, all your advocacy, all your mentoring and volunteering?
I just pick and choose, really. If I have time, like my weekends, I prefer to do volunteer work. Like that's where I find my happy medium. Work-wise, I'm actually grateful that I'm with Building Up because I could still do my practice, but also doing the accountability and teaching at the same time. So that's a good balance. And the mentoring, I do it all the time. So if my mentees like text me and I'm just like, hi, how are you? And then we just have a big discussion. And sometimes it could be something they're going through on site. Sometimes it could be personal. And I'm just open to whatever I could help. I always tell them, like, don't be afraid. You can always text me. Even if I'm busy, you can always text me.
Yeah, I agree. So do you have like specific resources that you access throughout your apprenticeship journey that you can share with others, or did you do it all on your own?
I found them on my own. It was more like, oh, Melissa, what about this? Oh, Melissa, what about this? And then I'm reading and I'm like, okay, maybe check it out. And then when I go and I hear more information, I take that information and I'll share it to who I know needs it. Yeah, so I build my resources in a nice journal.
That's perfect. We always like to end our podcast with, what advice would you like to have given your younger self?
Stop pleasing people. Please yourself.
Oh, I think that's awesome advice.
Because I was doing that when I was a kid. It's always make my parents happy, make my teacher happy and all that. There's not even a dawn day that says, Melissa, what makes you happy? And now what came with the trades is me being a peer worker, me being a mentor. I wish, like, this is me, like, thinking when I was 18. I wish I did it at 18 because I'd be more effective now.
If you would have done it at 18, was there something like education or school, or what would have made you have that change that you could have done it earlier?
Education. The guidance counselors actually talk about more of the skill trades and what it is. I think I would have easily went into like carpentry right there because I went to a technical school and they have everything. Yeah. So even a job fair in the school or some kind of symposium in my school, I think I would have got into my trade back then.
Which is awesome. So hopefully we can change a few lives of people getting into the trades earlier. Melissa, thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. Please continue to inspire, mentor, and empower the next generation of skilled trade professionals and leaders.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. I'm happy to be part of this and be able to share my journey and also, my love for the trades, my love for advocacy for women in the trades, and also advocacy for second chances, because I feel that sector is always being left behind. And I feel it's time for, everybody to, if somebody is going through something, give them a second chance. You never know.
I agree. And I think you need to keep doing what you're doing and keep sharing the stories and keep promoting second chances, and let's change the stigma so people, if they get out of prison, actually have an opportunity to, be part of any workforce. But it would be really nice to have them be part of skilled trades.
Exactly.
You can learn more about today's guest in the show notes and at the powerhouse-project.com. And if you know anyone in the skilled trades who would like to be on the show, you can send in a voice note or a message on the website. Please follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you so much for listening.